in the 06010. Focus, fantasy focus.
What's good, friends? Welcome into Fantasy Focus Football presented by Wingstop alongside Field Yates and Stephania Bell. My name is Daniel Dopp with Week 15 officially in the books. Monday Night Football is finally behind us, my friends. We'll be able to talk about that in a little bit. Also want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Trophy Smack. Head on over to TrophySmack.com. Use the promo code FOCUS10 for 10% off your order over there. And shout out to our buddy Eric Moody. Follow him on social media at Eric and Moody, answering all of the questions in our YouTube chat. Honestly, the engine that drives the community here on Fantasy Focus is what Eric Moody is. So make sure you give him a little bit of love as well. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. Can I offer up one more shout out?
Yes.
Of course.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I asked permission and very
I like it. I love that. That is exactly how it works.
You should say, would you guys mind?
Do you guys mind?
Mind if I do this?
Don't mind? Yes. I want to give a shout out to the people that are still listening or watching.
Yes.
Who have been eliminated from their playoffs.
Yep.
I mean, if you're still in it, like, we shout out you as well, but you have motivation, right? You're still making decisions this week. For those of you that have been knocked out and just enjoy the entertainment and hopefully laughs that you get from this show, shout out to you. Mike Clay amongst those that have been eliminated from all their leagues and others. Sorry, couldn't help myself there. But yes, to those that have been eliminated, Mike's definitely not listening right now and certainly won't be mad at me for saying that. But it is cool that people want to hang out for the entirety of the season, independent of how their teams are doing. So we are on to, in many cases, the semifinals, or for those that play in 2-week semis and 2-week finals, the first week of the finals, which is, of course, week 16.
I don't know what you just said there, not word salad.
Oh.
But if I may follow up on that, for all the people who are listening, you should listen for these last 2 weeks because we're also throwing in nuggets to get you thinking about next year. And it's never too soon.
Yep.
Am I wrong?
It's always football season,
Never
Stephania.
too soon to be starting to think about next year. And as some of these players that we might talk about today, who you might not see the rest of this season, you might be wondering, what about them for next year? So, we're going to throw in some nuggets for all the people who are paying attention, not just those of you in the playoffs.
That is absolutely correct. I do want to give a quick shout out, though, to our buddy Drew Carter. I got to see him last night at the Boston Celtics game.
Yeah.
And he let me know that he's in 3 fantasy leagues, listens to Fantasy Focus, didn't have any games, unfortunately, this week, though. Because he has 3 buys.
Oh, my goodness.
What up, Drew? So
that's a humble brag.
Big shout out to him being able to be a fan of the podcast.
Drew, and I mean this sincerely. This is not trying to be a good teammate. This is not trying to make this conversation sound more convenient and clear and cool. I think Drew Carter is the best young broadcaster.
He's so good.
I think he will be the voice of the NBA one day, if not the voice of the NFL, MLB, NHL, every professional sporting league. That's how good he is. I think he's
unbelievable,
off the charts talented,
and a great dude as well.
We can
all right. With that, let's talk about a little bit of news that we had, unfortunately, last night in the NFL. We got news that Jayden Daniels has officially been shut down for the season. We were kind of waiting to see if this would eventually happen with the injuries he's been dealing with. Stephania, any just quick words on what he's going to have to deal with now as he's trying to recover and get into form for 2026?
Yes, well, just the quick recap. He dislocated his elbow a few weeks ago, comes back, and in the game where he returns, he falls and he bangs that elbow and clearly uncomfortable. Now, after the game, Dan Quinn had said he could return. He later followed that up and said, well, maybe not, because some of the testing they did revealed that maybe he wouldn't have been able to return.
Okay.
But the thought was always, he's a young quarterback who needs more reps, and he wants those reps. So if he's healthy enough, we will try and get him back before the season's over. As of yesterday, still not cleared for contact. And I think the feeling was, look, he wouldn't be cleared for this game. The next game would be on Christmas Day. So now you're putting a short week behind that.
Yeah.
Not ideal. So you know what? We're going to shut him down from games. However, they're not going to put him on injured reserve because that way he can still practice. And they do think that's important. Daniels really wants to be there and be part of the team. I mean, he is a studier. That the whole thing with him in the virtual reality that he uses, I think it's very important for him to get out and be doing football things. So I think that's a good sign. I do think that will happen once he's cleared to get back into practice mode. but no more Jayden Daniels on the football field.
The only question I have about Jayden right now is where is his confidence at? And the reason why I ask that specifically is if for any reason his confidence is lower than it normally is, and I get the sense he is a deservedly confident young man, think about where his confidence could be if he played the Cowboys on Christmas Day. Like, he might leave that game and be like, I just torched that wretched defense for 450 passing yards and 150 rushing yards. I am him. So if for some reason his confidence is shaken this week, I think the Commanders need to keep an open mind to playing him on Christmas Day.
I just love the narrative that we're going to give Jayden Daniels a 600-yard game, and I'm here for it every single time,
But
man.
the thing is, neither one of you were like, 600 yards?
You're like, I don't know. That seems like not
Ever
possible.
happened. You guys were like, oh, wow. When you do the math on it,
Yeah,
it kind of
that
does
kinda
check
checks
out.
out.
Yeah.
Also because you're like, oh, they play the Cowboys. Could happen.
It could against Dallas, absolutely. With Jayden Daniels, the best rookie rushing quarterback that we had ever seen in the history of the game. Really unfortunate because he's not the first top 5 quarterback that we have this year that has unfortunately gone down or dealt with a bunch of injuries. Unfortunately, he is just one of the next ones. So hopefully better things for Jayden Daniels moving forward for next year.
Yeah.
For us in fantasy football, I feel like it's sort of tough to be like, well, if you lost Jayden Daniels, you've already been playing without Jayden Daniels for like the second half of the season, basically.
Yeah, we kind of know what the offense looks like with Marcus Mariota. And by the way, Mariota is a pretty decent streaming option. Well, let me take that back. He is a pretty reasonable fill-in quarterback option if you are desperate right now because, of course, you either aren't going to have Jayden Daniels, Patrick Mahomes, so we'll talk about it a little bit more in just a moment. The big issue with Mariota in this week specifically is, of course, that he plays against the Eagles, not a great matchup for any quarterback. But if you get through this week with Mariota, you do have the Cowboys on the other side.
Yes. All right. Love that. We will continue to monitor what happens there. And with that being said, let's dive into a little Monday Night Football recaps.
How do you say that?
Monday Night Football.
There we go.
That's right. Steelers and Dolphins. Guys, I saw that the Steelers scored a bunch of touchdowns with people that we don't care about in fantasy football.
Last night
there was one guy.
I mean, guys, last night was maybe the perfect, is in like the worst type of fantasy football game.
Yes.
So
To wrap
awful.
up a playoff week. And this is to take nothing away from the players that scored touchdowns. But let's just talk about some of the stuff that happened. And again, the NFL did not schedule this game like a week ago. They made this decision all the way back in May. There was a world in which Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane and DK Metcalf and all these guys were scoring touchdowns. Instead, here were some of the players to score touchdowns early in the game last night. The very first touchdown was scored by Connor Hayward,
Right.
who is a tight end who ran 4 separate tush pushes last night for the Steelers. 4 rushes for 4 yards and 1 touchdown for Hayward.
Wow.
Later on in the game, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and I'm not trolling you right now, actually scored a touchdown. That guy,
No way.
former Packer, then the Chief, then the Bill, then the Saint, then the Seahawk,
What was the
then the
text
49er.
I sent you? Death taxes and
MVS
touchdown for
from-
MVS from Rodgers,
Yeah.
right?
Marquez Valdez-Scantling. The earth kind of tilted back onto its axis later when DK Metcalf scored.
That's
honestly,
reasonable.
Pretty sweet touchdown.
That
by
was
DK
actually,
as
if you
well.
just want to go watch one highlight for the game, that might be it.
But there's some frustration. Like, you can compound this frustration because Connor Hayward scores a tush-push touchdown after Jalen Warren gets back-to-back carries from the 1-yard line, which both of them went for, like, maybe it was first and goal from the 2. Warren got a half a yard. Second and goal from the 1.5. He gets another half yard. So not much cooking there for Jalen Warren. But yes, randomness everywhere. And then Darren Waller has 2 late touchdowns last night. Like,
Jonnu
YOLO.
Smith had a rushing touchdown. Is that right?
And a 16-yard rushing touchdown.
Really,
Dude.
that was rude.
That was rude. It felt like with everything else that had happened in Week 15, we had some monster weeks by people. We had some huge performances, and then Monday Night Football kind of felt like a
Like
little
it
bit.
trolled you if you
Kinda.
were playing fantasy football.
Yes.
That's what it felt like.
If you had Devon Achane, let's talk about the players that you needed to have.
Yeah.
If you had Devon Achane kind of came through for you, maybe a little bit of garbage time.
Garbage time for
Garbage.
HN. That being said, the kind of guy that can certainly carry you next week if you would survive, make it to week 16. We were laughing before the show. HN, who got, it's amazing that HN got only 18.7 fantasy points. We're like, yeah, pretty solid. Meanwhile, he has a projection next week of 28.51 points by Mike. Mike, I think, errs on the
Absurd.
Never
side,
see that.
like a
Yeah.
little bit conservative. Mike talks about how we're looking at median outcomes. If the median outcome for Devon Achane might be 28.51 points,
Think of what it could be.
yeah, I mean, thoughts and prayers to all those facing off against HN next week. They draw the Bengals. So to me, HN, that was the only Dolphins player that performed to expectation last night that we were starting.
Totally.
Jalen Waddle has a quiet night. Jalen Waddle, I think, did he finish with just one catch?
Two for 26.
He had a late catch to make it 2 for 26 for a quiet night for Jalen Waddle. If there is such thing, and we were talking yesterday about how like takeaways are a little less important here because it's week 16 now, the NFL season. If a guy has like a slight uptick in targets or carries or even a higher snap percentage, are you really going to thrust that player into your starting lineup for the championship or the semifinals? It might be, though, that you can maybe have a little bit less optimism on a player, and that might be the case here for Jaylen Warren, who has been really good for much of this year. I want to start by acknowledging he was sick.
I was going to comment on this because he wasn't feeling well. Illness, took some medicine, showed up to play the game, but clearly was not feeling at his best. And they like Kenneth Gainwell. Aaron Rodgers talked about the love he has for Kenneth Gainwell after the game. We've seen Kenneth Gainwell be productive for you in a flex spot, but the night that Kenneth Gainwell had last night, I felt in part was due to a less than 100% Jaylen Warren.
Do you know what he was sick with? Because it seems like, I don't know if it was just allergies. Was he just allergic to the end zone and he just needed to take some?
Wow. I mean, the day could have
Kick
looked
a guy
little
when he's
different.
down.
Yeah.
Oh, please. He's doing just fine, I feel like. But yes.
To Daniel's point, like if he does finish off one of those two opportunities from the 1 yard line, we're saying like, yeah, Jaylen Warren finishes with 15 opportunities and a touchdown. So I think that there's a little bit of realness to what Kenny G did last night, Kenneth Gainwell, which is he had 7 catches and I did something really cool last night. I was watching the game with Luke Kuechly. I'll explain it more in greater detail later on this week.
Okay.
No, big
Just
deal.
like a name drop. Hold on, let me pick up Luke Kuechly over here. All right, keep going.
Listen, Luke Kuechly, like I actually left the studio and I was like, how come I'm not like brilliant and jacked and
bigger,
a Hall of Famer and incredibly
And actually really nice
well-spoken,
guy.
unbelievable human.
Stop it. You are all those things, Field Yates, please.
Right. What you spend 1 second around Luke Kuechly and you're like, I am a tiny human. Anyways, he was like, listen, this is what happens right now. Aaron Rodgers getting the ball out rapid fire. We had some of those time to throw graphics going last night from what we were watching, and Rodgers getting the ball out quick bodes well for Kenneth Gainwell, who in our week 16 rankings does crack my top 20 of running backs. They play who this week?
The Detroit Lions.
And I got to imagine that Kelvin Shepard, the defensive coordinator for your Lions, is saying to himself, attack number 8, get the ball out quick.
I said this to you this last week when I was just losing my mind during this Lions game. The Lions had only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns to running backs since week 4 coming into this Rams game. And then they allowed 3 rushing touchdowns in 3 quarters. So
it may not be that the Steelers are going to run the football particularly effectively because Kenny G had 40 of his 80 rushing yards on 1 carry. So the other 12 went for just 40 yards as well. But he may have 5 to 7 catches again on Sunday.
they may not be.
Especially if Rodgers, what he talked about last night was the fluidity of Gainwell catching the ball and how he can get it to him quickly. And if that is going to be the case, that he is going to have to get rid of the ball quickly, who's he going to look for but the guy he's confident in? We know Rodgers, once he trusts you, he's got that confidence and he's already identified it, he's going to keep going back to the well.
The Steelers have like 6 running backs too, between Kenny Gainwell and Jaylen Warren and then Jonnu Smith and Connor Hayward.
You're going somewhere.
And there's got to be there's so many people. You never know which one. Caleb Johnson got some run there
last night.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Cordero Patterson's not on this team right now with Arthur Smith.
It'll be him and Trey Sermon active.
He'll be added. He'll be added.
Yeah. I am sneaky happy that game this upcoming week is in Detroit, by the way.
Me too.
Just because last night, meanwhile, again, we're sitting from a cushy studio. It looks cold out there. Miami.
It looked miserable.
So my last thought here, because we want to get to waivers. We have some cool stuff throughout the show. And this is a fantasy thought to a degree because it does matter when they play late season games in the cold. But Miami needs to make a decision at some point here about whether they want to be a tough football team or not because they lack toughness maybe as much as any team when they play on the road. That's a tough thing to call. No pun intended. It's a difficult thing to call out, but this team becomes completely unserious when the weather is cold.
Yeah.
They actually played good defense in the first half. It was a 7-3 game. Pittsburgh scored with 17 seconds to go in the second quarter, and then they went on to score on their next, I think it was 3 straight touchdown drives, and they end up dilapidating this Miami team. But who are you? Who are you, Miami?
And here I thought that flying up early in the practice in the snow was going to make them perform well.
Do they actually do that?
Oh, yeah, there's video of it.
Oh,
Didn't help.
That's got to hurt when you went the extra mile and you still got.
You still look like that.
It's
Not
a tough
fantastic.
team right there. The Dolphins team, who maybe had fooled a little bit of the football population by winning 4 straight games, including a huge win over the Buffalo Bills. But this team, man, don't like Miami when the temperatures dropped below like 35 degrees last night. It was, I want to say, like the coldest Monday night football game that we had seen since Aaron Rodgers playing at Lambeau back for the Packers, whatever that was, 4 or 5
5+ years ago. Yeah. Gross. No, thank you. All right. Well, with Monday Night Football in the rear view, let's take a quick look at our Fantasy Focus Show League because we are coming right down to it, my friends. And by we, I don't mean the rest of us. We can take the break
talk
here.
about that. I'm going to just go do something else while you guys chat about that.
But our buddy Team Moody, unfortunately, with the loss to kiss the baby. Our producer Tyler beats Eric Moody 156 to 134.
Wow.
Tyler moving on. And Miller Light Mike with a big win, 160.94 over the producer David Presley, who put in 131 in that game. By the way, David Presley had James Cook, Puka Nacua, and Dalton Schultz, all with massive games, and still got crushed because Mike had Amon-Ra St. Brown and Bijan Robinson.
How did, poor Presley, who was at the
Presley.
top pretty much all year long.
And now here we are. We've got the semifinal rounds here. We've got Kiss the Baby, our producer Tyler, against Jamar Mageddon, our producer Zach. That'll be a big one. That'll be really fun. And then on the other side, we got the 6th seed. Mike's trying to be the Giants, right?
Yes.
He's channeling his inner Mario Manningham for this one, taking on Trophy Smack.
So I'm going to look at do you have a projection here for those two matches?
I would love to know.
Okay.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, and I mean this with all the love in the world, because we love Trophy Smack. They are unbelievable. They have been too good at fantasy football the last couple of years, and I am going to do the inconceivable thing and root for our friend Mike Clay in this matchup.
I'm not, but I'm glad you are. I'm looking at who's favored in this one. Let's take a look. I won my consolation game, for those that are wondering.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's big time there.
That's big.
So obviously, lineups need to be set here, and some things can change place. Daniel currently favored by 0.8 over me in another consolation game. How about this, though? Mike Clay, the heavy-hitting Mike Clay, projected for 140.6 against Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack says, I see your 140.6, and I raise you 140.95.
No, a 0.3.
So for some context, those guys with 2 huge numbers. Meanwhile, our guy Tyler is going to have to find a new quarterback because he had Patrick Mahomes as his only quarterback on the roster. He's going to have to hit the waiver wire this week, and a wide receiver. He's going to have to find someone to fill in for Christian Watson this weekend. However, for Tyler, if T. Higgins is back, that one could be a little more even.
Yeah.
Zach, our producer, currently projected for 129.95. And Zach's lineup, maybe you could make a tight end adjustment with Harold Fannin over Tyler Warren. That being said, Zach's team looks pretty solidly locked in. He is riding the Josh Allen, Jamar Chase mismatched team stack. That usually works out pretty well for you.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this really quickly because you mentioned a couple of names in there. You might need to be able to go grab somebody for this week in case you need it. So it is now time for our playoff stash presented by Wingstop. Stephania Bell, we're stashing a player for the playoffs, making sure that we have someone just in case we need to call on them this week. Who's the player you're bringing to the table?
So I thought about this long and hard, right? Because it's like, this is such an important week. It's win or go home.
Yep.
Okay.
And there are options. You have options at wide receiver. You might have an option
Good to have
running
options.
back. But what's a position where we struggle to find depth all the time?
Tight end.
Right? And you know who's hot right now? Colby Parkinson. Colby
like
Parkinson
wings from Wingstop.
for the There you go.
Yes.
Hot
Thought about that one all morning.
Well done by
Way to go.
Thank you.
Colby Parkinson, I know, Daniel, that you're acutely aware of what he did this week. 24.5 fantasy points.
There's nothing cute about it.
Yeah.
5 for 75 with 2, not 1, but 2 touchdowns to Colby Parkinson. You know, the Rams know how to use multiple tight ends, but Colby Parkinson's really been heating it up lately. Since week 10, 6 touchdowns in his last 7 games. That's most touchdowns by a tight end in that time frame. And 6 week 10, 13.5 fantasy points per game. He's tight end 4 in that span. This week he was tight end 5 on the week. Sean McVay, full of praise for Colby Parkinson after the game. And here's the other thing. They play on Thursday night.
Yeah.
They might not have Devontae Adams, who is somebody who is the one that Matthew Stafford looks for in the end zone.
Yep.
So who else is he looking for without Devontae Adams? Colby Parkinson. I think this is a great opportunity for him. Nice matchup right here. Go ahead and get yourself Colby Parkinson. You know what? He's only rostered in 10.5% in fantasy.
Wow, a couple of nice leagues.
Widely available. That was the other thing I wanted to look for, was somebody who you might be able to easily go and
Grab.
find. So,
Colby was a solid Raheem Sanders pick.
He was?
For a while there. So he was down at 0.1% for a long period of time. So nice to see him trending up.
Love to
So
see that.
Plenty of opportunity there for Colby.
I co-sign with everything Stephania said, except we're going to subtract one touchdown from every time she said how many touchdowns he scored over the last however many games.
Remember the bull dung touchdown he scored?
It was absolutely, his knee was
Down.
down at the 1 yard line. It's like a full 3 feet short. Like it's
maybe
3
like
feet.
a yard and a half short.
Like it was.
yeah, but he's big, so it looked like.
Oh, that's what it
that's
is.
not
Well,
that.
if only we had
Size.
600 cameras on the field to be able to see what happens. All right, let's dive into the Week 16 waiver wire. With that being said, and honestly, hey, why don't we use our buddy Tyler as an example? Tyler right now making the playoffs, but he has Patrick Mahomes. He is in a spot where he's going to have to head out to the waiver wire in order to continue to move on and get a quarterback right now. So if you've got Patrick Mahomes, you've got to go out there and find someone to be able to start this week. I got 2 quarterbacks I want to throw at you guys. A little bit of a conversation here.
You're going to throw at us like a
There we go, Field.
Oh, hey, yo.
All right, so we got 2 names I'm going to bring to the table. CJ Stroud, rostered in 51% of leagues. He had 260 passing yards last week, 3 touchdowns, plus 10 yards on the ground, 23.4 fantasy points. His first 20-point game since week 8. Here's the thing that kind of scares me. Only his 3rd 20-point game this season. However, he gets a nice matchup, and it's indoors against the Raiders this week. Raiders aren't unbelievably
at
good,
Raiders.
but they aren't unbelievably bad. They're better than mid-pack. But yeah, it's a nice matchup for him, and it's indoors.
What you like about the matchup is that here's how I think it works is the Raiders, you go check their season-long numbers, right? They have allowed, I think it was, 22 passing touchdowns this whole season, which is about middle of the pack. 211 passing yards per game, which is also about middle of the pack. However, it's because teams have just run the football really effectively against them, or the Raiders scored like 4 points a game.
Right.
So they don't need to throw the football that much. What you're hoping for CJ is something like an efficient 250 passing yards, maybe 2 touchdowns.
2 to 3 touchdowns.
And it's a pretty effortless game here for Houston.
If you can get to 250 and 2 touchdowns and come away with 18, 19 fantasy points, if he gets a couple things with his legs, I think you would feel pretty good about that as a fill-in replacement. The other guy to consider, and Field was all over this a couple weeks ago, baby, JJ McCarthy. That's right. Oh, he's doing it.
Hey, I don't think Kevin O'Connell is going to allow that to happen. Not too happy
that's
about
true.
bringing the ball down low before you're across the finish line.
The finish line? The goal line.
It is the
It
finish
is the
line.
finish line.
Metaphorical finish line,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
He had 250 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, plus 4 carries for 15 yards, and that rushing touchdown Field just showed us for 23.5 fantasy points. Back-to-back games. My voice just cracked there.
I know, you got
I got a little excited. Back-to-back games with 20 fantasy points. It's another great matchup against the Giants. The only thing is it's in New York. So just wanted to make sure that we monitor the weather, because with it being the Northeast in winter, you can sometimes get some squirrely things. But a great option in case you wanted somebody as well. JJ McCarthy and CJ Stroud, I think, are my 2 options. Yeah. If I had to replace Patrick Mahomes, do you have a lean, either one of you, as to which way you would go?
I lean towards Stroud, but ever so slightly. It's a good option there for JJ McCarthy for sure. But you said something about me and calling this a while ago earlier. What
You did.
So
a couple weeks ago when we did this, actually it was our very first one.
It was
Yes.
the very first
People
playoffs.
were laughing at that date. They were like, yeah, right, bruh.
I clearly won that take because I said Ricky Pearsall potentially coming back. Didn't look bad this last week. However, JJ McCarthy was a much better call when we had that.
Tell you, Ricky Pearsall aggravated his PCL injury, so stay tuned on Ricky Pearsall for this week.
Okay.
Not to rain on your parade there,
Thanks,
Daniel,
Stephania.
but I just felt like
It's
it was
your
the
parade.
moment was right. If we're doing, if we're just going to kind of segue into things, I have to mention that while we are here talking about Ricky Pearsall. Yeah, my take was something on Travion Henderson, I do believe.
Yes.
He's been okay.
He's been pretty good.
Well, that was
pretty
your
good.
bold, yes. That was a bold call.
Oh,
This was
that
a
was
great one. This
bold.
was
I
talking
don't
about
know.
playoff
I'm just-
stash. But that was a great bold call. By the way, you are correct. They are playing this weekend in New York, Daniel.
Yes.
But as far as New York in December is concerned,
What's it look like this
well,
week?
the weather
Supposed to be
for
like
here in
40 and
Bristol on
rainy?
Sunday is 46 degrees with no rain.
Oh, no
I
rain.
can't imagine that East Rutherford is dramatically different.
That's a difference maker.
Downright balmy compared to what it has been.
If you're telling me that they get to play outdoors in New York in December and it's going to be 40 degrees with no snow or rain,
precipitation.
yeah, I will buy that in a different way, I think.
It's supposed to rain, but maybe before then.
It might happen earlier on in the week. Maybe we'll see how that plays out. But two quarterbacks. While you're looking at this, I will just say C.J. Stroud rostered in 51% of leagues. That's the reason why I wanted to mention J.J. McCarthy, just in case he wasn't out there, in case C.J. Stroud was maybe like a second quarterback for someone in your league and you need to go another direction. So I like both of those two quarterbacks if you need someone in Week 16.
I do want to mention while we were on the quarterbacks that Patrick Mahomes did have his surgery. So that has already taken place. There was some question about when that would happen. He was exploring options. We heard about a second opinion to go see Dr. Dan Cooper, who is the head team physician for the Dallas Cowboys. Once I knew that he was going to see him, I'm like, he's not going to see him and leave. This is going to be a surgery there. And it made me wonder if there was more than just an ACL for Patrick Mahomes, because Dr. Dan Cooper is known in the sports medicine community for these more complex knee ligament repairs.
Okay.
And lately, he's really been known, I guess is the word, within that realm for a lot of these LCL repairs. And if you think about it, Javonte Williams had his surgery with Dr. Cooper, and Javonte had an ACL, LCL. Rashee Rice had an LCL repair. He had his surgery with Dr. Dan Cooper. Patrick Mahomes with Dr. Dan Cooper, and the word is that in addition to the ACL, he also had his LCL repaired. And if you go back and look at the video where Mahomes' knee, there's still shots. It kind of bows outward, like, bow-legged. We call that varus. Puts a lot of stress on the outside of the knee. So he didn't have just an isolated ACL, also partial tear, at least to the LCL, because they had to fix it. And we don't know that it changes the time frame that dramatically, but just for people to monitor this, it's not a straightforward ACL.
And this segment was presented by Dr. Dan Cooper, who has obviously done everyone's stuff.
You guys know you've seen him on the sideline of the Cowboys. He always has a Cowboy hat.
Oh, that's actually going to be on Fantasy Football Now this Sunday during Only Days.
We should bring him on for Only Dans. Dr. Dan Cooper.
Dr. Dan Cooper in his cowboy hat.
Let's extend the invitation.
Do it.
Last thought I have here is you imagine the person who, I don't know what days Dr. Dan Cooper normally operates, what time frame, but can you imagine somebody who's like, I'm going in on Monday, December 15th, going to have a little knee surgery, just a scope in the afternoon, Monday afternoon, something I have a meeting to take care of for a while. And then like Monday morning, they're like, yes, so the scope, it's been canceled. We'll do it again some other time, but you're good. And they're like, excuse me, like my surgery's been canceled. Patrick Mahomes is coming.
Patrick Mahomes is coming in. Yes, sorry.
Well, actually, here's what usually happens. These guys, they just add more to their day. Like there's the
only
VIP
so
that
many
comes
hours
in,
in a day,
and then
Stephania.
everybody else. You might be going in for your scope and be sitting there right next to Patrick Mahomes.
That would be, but it'd be honestly, if my surgery got postponed because of Patrick Mahomes, I would be honored. That would
Yes.
be awesome.
Most
Agreed.
people are like, give him mine. Give him my knee.
Yes.
Give him
Do you
my
need
knee.
anything from me while you're in there? Go ahead and just take it out. It's fine. It's fine. I got a couple of names. Honestly, it's Week 16. Like, you're likely dancing with the people that got you here. There weren't that many other
Dance with who brung you. That's
Thank you,
the
Stephania.
saying.
That's the saying. There weren't that many other major injuries that's like it's a one-to-one replacement. This guy is out, so you want to go out and grab this person. Stephania, I do want to give you the little bit of the table. Is there anybody that you feel like we need to talk about before I just mention a few guys that I think are just worth monitoring?
We've mentioned some of the key ones. You got Bam Knight with an ankle injury that is going to be.
How do you say his name?
Bam.
Thank you. There's only one person who can do that.
Yes.
I was defaulting
Yes.
here.
Therefore, yeah.
It might be Michael Carter running the ball for Arizona because there's really not anyone left.
I need you to come up with a nickname for him because we have Bam Knight and Mari DiMercato. So we need a nickname for Michael Carter now. So Stephania, I'm going to put that on you, all right?
Well, for another time.
Okay.
I got to process.
All right, deal. Deal.
Okay.
I can't have the bad accent like Mike Clay.
No.
And I can't do the Bam like Field does.
I
So
think you have the courage to muster up a.
I think I'll come up with something French.
Uh,
Michel.
Oh, okay.
no.
You know what?
He's going to hate that.
That's all right.
Don't tell him.
Don't tell him. We won't tell him. All right.
Bashal Tutin,
Yep.
right finger, going to have surgery on it and will expected to miss a couple of weeks. So they're talking about getting him back for the playoffs potentially, but no Bashal Tutin.
Or ETN.
More ETN. There's obviously a number of injuries that we'll be talking about later, but some of the big ones that are urgent right now that we know people are going to be out or at least at risk. Devontae on Thursday, we mentioned. Micah Parsons, I know we don't talk about defensive players that much, but confirmed ACL tear for him. And so.
Let me ask you really quickly. On Sunday, we ended up being able to rule out Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in case we wanted to use him in our fantasy lineup. That was because Chris Rodriguez was ruled out. Do we have any updates on him as to whether or not we think that will continue to linger into Week 16?
Not yet.
Okay.
I will say this, though. They play on Saturday, which means they will
Yes.
issue a practice report today before waivers hit. So there's a chance that Chris Rodriguez is out again of practice today, which might be an indication he will not play on Sunday. However, it's the Eagles, so tread lightly on that one.
Yep.
There.
Jace.
It's a good reminder that there are those 4 teams that play on Saturday because this is the time of year where you might forget that there are Saturday games. You got to get your lineup set ahead of time.
He had Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt without Chris Rodriguez had 18 touches.
It looked good.
By 18 touches, I meant 18 carries because he doesn't catch the football. However, he did look good. You're not wrong. 18 carries, 96 yards, and a touchdown, 15.6 fantasy points. I think he's worth monitoring. I think we're in the worth monitoring section.
I'd add him, and for this reason, even if you don't play him this weekend, if you advance to the finals, he'd be a reasonable flex option against the Cowboys. Because I do wonder if, in the same way that they are making bigger picture decisions on guys like Jayden Daniels,
Yep.
if you're Washington, who do you think is more valuable to evaluate right now? Chris Rodriguez, who's just been a rock-solid role player for you for a few years, or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt? You're trying to figure out, can this guy be our number 2 back going
The
forward?
kid that you maybe traded Brian Robinson away for to give him more opportunities on the field and see what he looks like. Also, even if you don't need him, just the idea of in case you move on to the next week and your opponent, maybe something happens and they need a running back. Like it's a nice
defense.
blocking move.
I think the other things to keep an eye on was the Rome Odunze stress reaction in his foot. We not much warning. We talked about this yesterday. Aggravated the foot in warmups. Did Rome Odunze? So we have no idea whether he's going to make it back. But I think I said this yesterday. Once you have something like that happen, it makes you a little bit more cautious because this is not something that's necessarily going to heal completely. And if the Bears are looking at big picture, they may want to give him a little bit more rest time. The addition to that is that Luther Burden had an ankle issue that he left the game for. And so we have to check what the status of Luther Burden is coming into this week.
Ben Johnson described him as day-to-day yesterday. Ben has showed himself to be pretty reliable in the
Great segment,
injury
by the way,
department.
day-to-day.
Yeah, great segment. Award-winning injury analyst.
Yes, on Fantasy
Paralleled,
Football Now.
never,
That's right.
Ever replicated. I will say this on Rome Odunze is Ben Johnson's comments, you read between the lines yesterday, certainly sounded like a guy who's going to sit this Saturday night. If they win against the Packers, they would be 11-4, and they would be a game up in the loss column on Green Bay, 2 up on the Lions. That might be the kind of thing that dictates, all right, Rome, you're good for week 17 as well. Now, if they lose and it's like, crap, we were stale offensively without you, and they play the Niners in week 17, that might change the calculus, but it wouldn't surprise me if a win on Saturday equals no room the week after as well.
And just in case, I understand the injury situation with Luther Burden, but if there was someone that you're going to pick up opposite of Rome Odunze, I just want to say the rookie is just nicely starting to ascend at the right time. 3 straight games over 6 targets.
Be curious how far DJ Moore's roster percentage has dropped.
How much has changed?
Ooh.
Let's look that up.
Thinking about, I'll tell you right now. I'll grab that answer for you because there's a chance that DJ Moore becomes, never mind, 79%. I thought it might have dropped even
more than
way
that.
lower than that, but DJ
I'll bet
Moore,
his starting percentage is unbelievably low.
I was
People are
wondering
just
if maybe you could sneak one by in waivers.
and see if you could grab him
The
there.
answer is no.
Yeah, you would. Luther Burden is the kind of guy that you need Rome Odunze not only to be out, but then you also basically need him to get in the end zone. He only has 1 touchdown this year, but it's nice to be able to see. This is one of the things that we often look at is rookies ascending at the end of a season, even if it's not just for now. It's part of that thing that we're going to think about heading into next year.
Good looking player, I'll tell you that much.
Yes, he is. Stephania, anyone else that you want to make sure that you mention?
Let's see. We covered Pearsall and not right now.
Okay.
There will be more.
That
There
is
are
young.
more injuries, and there will be more things that bubble up during the week. But those are kind of the big ones for fantasy playoff purposes. I think you need to be mindful of.
I feel like I just need to say this. Given what just happened last week, it would be criminal if I didn't at least mention it and talk about it. But Trevor Lawrence is very much available if you want to add him at the quarterback spot. After a 6-touchdown game last week, he gets the
ridiculous.
Denver Broncos this week. I don't want to add Trevor Lawrence against the Broncos. That's why I talked about C.J. Stroud and J.J. McCarthy, but it just feels wrong to not mention him after that major game. Do you guys see it any differently, or would you have maybe more confidence in T-Law than I do in
I'd
Week
have
16?
a hard time starting him this week because of the matchup against Denver, but when you described him as very much available, that reminded me of like old school Facebook status where it's like relationship and it's like very much single.
Yes, yes, that's what
Trevor's
he
not.
is.
He's a married man with a family, but
He
like,
is.
I don't know, the way you described it gave me some flashbacks.
Well, let me want to put some numbers really quickly. This last week, 330 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, plus 51 rushing yards, and another touchdown, 44.3 fantasy points.
Call your shot right now. Will he replicate that in week 16?
That's a no for me, dog.
Be a no.
That's a no from me, dog.
We are going to do some gut calls, though, tomorrow on the show. So if you wanted to bring that one back, your gut call is Trevor Lawrence will not score 44.3 fantasy points.
Yes.
That's
Feel
a
free.
bold
Yeah, it's a big
prediction.
one. It's a big
Big
one.
one.
Week 16, you got to go bold.
Going out on a limb.
It was his first game of 300 or more passing yards. He has more games with 0 or 1 passing touchdowns. It's a really difficult matchup. I just want to say all this because it's tough when you see a guy score 44 points to be like, well, how do I not play him next week?
Well, also, that was the game of his life. Like, if that's the game of your life, are you really doing that the next week? I don't care who the opponent is.
How many New York Jets defensive players are starting for the Denver Broncos if they were to meld team rosters right now?
That's a great question.
And look what happened at
Three,
New York
maybe?
Jets
Maybe.
right after that game. So
Maybe
I
three.
think that it tells you part of
Steve
the
Wilkes.
answer to that. Yeah.
Last one that I will say really quickly because I mentioned C.J. Stroud, but as another tight end option, Dalton Schultz rostered in just over 50%. 55% of league, so he's a little bit over that, but a potential streaming option. Huge week this last week in week 15. 8 receptions, 9 targets, 76 yards, and a touchdown. 7 of his last 10 games. He has over 11 fantasy points. He's averaging 11.9 points since week 5. So he has been a nice, steady tight end. I want to ask you guys this. Do you believe this week?
I do. I do believe in Santa.
Do you believe that you would rather play Dalton Schultz with C.J. Stroud against the Raiders
Travis Kelce with...
or Travis Kelce with Gardner Minshew? Yes. How did you know that's what I was going to ask?
You have a little bit of a Kelce thing.
Oh, yeah, I do.
You do. And also, I think it's the biggest question in week.
Oh, thank you. I was right. I was
16
spot on
tight
with the
end.
biggest question.
Yeah.
Thank
For tight
you.
ends, that's the one people are wondering about.
That'll be a major question when we have Mike on to
I
look at
think
some
Schultz
rankings.
would be where he'll probably project a little higher, but it's close, man. Like,
Okay.
It's really, really close.
Last one that I have, just because it's week 16, streaming defense. If you need a streaming defense this week because you always need a new defense, Buffalo Bills take on the Cleveland Browns in week 16. Cleveland has not been great. Buffalo hasn't been great either on defense. Let's be honest about that. But Cleveland's offense, I think, is much worse than the Browns defense.
And by the way, the Bills played some good defense after the 21-point deficit last week. Like, they dialed in, that much is for sure.
Yes.
The Saints also interest me. Saints play the Jets this weekend.
Like that.
Falcons on a terrible one against Arizona. But the Falcons have been rushing the passer well of late. So if you're looking for sacks, there's some upside.
I don't know. Jacoby Brissett's been
I know.
unbelievable.
But the thing about Arizona is they can turn the ball over
They
as
dig
well.
themselves into holes.
They
Yeah.
do dig themselves into holes. And then Jacoby Brissett puts up so much volume.
Offensive
That's why
barrage.
I was less worried about him going into a matchup against the Texans because I felt like there would still be production, even though they would be outstanding as defense as
Yeah.
they have been all year.
Couple of options there for the week 16 waiver wire. Now, if you guys don't mind, I'd love to do something a little different. Maybe pivot and bring in a friend of ours.
Okay.
The guy who helps the community of Fantasy Focus stay together. Our buddy Eric Moody coming onto the show.
Moody in the chat.
Hopefully
Moody.
chat's going to be
There he
okay taking a
is.
break for Moody for just a minute. How you doing, bud? Good to see you.
No, good to see you as well, Dopp. I am doing great. I did listen to a little bit of Tin Machine this morning, their debut album.
Me too,
And-
man.
And it feels like, yeah, man, I listened to that. They're actually a little side project that David Bowie had in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yes.
Very underrated, so it was good. But
You
yeah.
knew that, though.
I was just going to say,
clearly.
Field,
I mean, who doesn't know that?
That's clearly.
Did you say Tin Machine or 10 Machine?
the same guy that said that, who was it, was under, Led Zeppelin was
Yes. Overrated.
I was trying to motivate Moody's team.
Yeah. Did it work?
It worked. Yeah, it worked.
He's in the.
Yeah.
That's
He's
so
shaking
good.
his head. Useless.
Well, Eric, I want to ask you this question. What's the mood right now? I feel like we always get to be able to have you on the chat. Everyone is in there. It seems like so many people love being able to just interact. I want to ask you about a couple of the moods of like what are people asking you questions about in the chat right now that we're in the fantasy playoffs?
Yeah, you know what, Dob? I've gotten a lot of questions. I'm just going to name some players and just some quick analysis on it. Let's have a conversation on this. So the first one is Ashton Genty. I'm like, this is someone who hasn't scored double-digit fantasy points since week 13. A lot of questions about Matthew Stafford, likely to be without Devontae Adams. Faces a stout Seahawks defense. Now, another one, this shouldn't come as a surprise, Justin Jefferson. In the midst of a dismal season, averaging just 11.5 fantasy points per game this year. You also have Michael Wilson. All good things about Michael Wilson. We don't want Marvin Harrison Jr. to return because Wilson is playing well. Last 5 games, he's averaged 23.1 fantasy points per game. That includes one where Harrison did play. I got 3 more for you real quick. You got Tyler Warren. Phillip Rivers, enough said, not Daniel Jones, definitely some concerns. Dak Prescott, good old Dallas Cowboys, facing that Chargers defense that's allowed the second fewest fantasy points per game. And last but not least, a player that is very dear to Moody's heart, Jonathan Taylor.
Yes.
Rivers under center. Hasn't scored 20 fantasy points since week 10 against the Falcons, where he delivered 49.6 fantasy points. So those are some players that are on the minds of our listeners and viewers in the chat.
I want to know this, Moody. I want to know about the roster of the chat right now. You, of course, excellent at giving out hardware for fantasy football purposes. Can you give us most active chatter, most crazy, ridiculous questions chatter?
Oh, that's a good
in the chat. Mostly positive. Let's think positive here. Person who makes you laugh the most. I'm assuming that the community, day over day, probably include a lot of the same faces, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely a lot of the same usernames. Now, some of the usernames are complex, different phrases and numbers.
Tell me about it.
So I know,
I've noticed that.
Daniel's friend Mai, I forget his last name, but Mai is one of Daniel's closest associates in the chat.
Yes.
It's M-A-I, Mai, yeah.
I'm just sitting there thinking, it's I know the Guitar Hero always cracks me up. One that's like the Quiche Monster. That's another one.
That's good.
Cushy.
Cushy.
See, that's fair.
Is another one.
Hey,
a lot of great things.
Is it true? Do you see Mama Dopp in chat, or is she lying to me and just telling me she's in chat for all these shows, but she's not actually watching it?
Hey, Mama Dopp is in chat. She's very active. She always makes it a point to say good morning to me, and I always make sure to say good morning back.
Sweetest.
Yeah.
She's the best. Love that. All right. Well, that's really great to hear, Eric. You mentioned a bunch of different names. I feel like chat is on it because all those names that they're mentioning, those are the names that we all have question marks on right now.
I would agree on that.
Listen, my 49ers are playing the Colts on Monday Night Football on our network.
Love that.
And I'm nervous about Jonathan Taylor. I'm out of the league where I had him because I lost in the first round of the playoffs to one Adam Schefter, who has a wagon of a team that all showed up.
Absolutely.
My team did not. And Jonathan Taylor, I think, the 49ers are, all of my fingers and toes are crossed for them because they've been able to do remarkable things despite injuries, but you can run on them.
You can.
And
we got to give Eric a lot of love here.
So
because
I think that's a really fair question about Jonathan Taylor this week. I think he could perform well. What do you think, Moody? I'm going to ask you for your
before you say that, Eric, I just want to give you flowers on this because you came in and you said at the beginning of the season that Jonathan Taylor was going to be this year's Saquon Barkley. And even though he's kind of slowed down a little bit towards the second half, he carried managers into the fantasy playoffs. Dude, it was an unbelievable call.
Right here. Apparently, I listened to your advice, Moody. That's really what the point of Daniel saying that was.
Right.
I listened to you.
Yes.
And it paid off.
You carried Stephania to the playoffs, Eric.
You did.
Love it. So, one thing about Taylor, which I know is something we don't talk about as often, like on the show, I always try to weave it into analysis, is like offensive line play, because that's a position I did play in college. And so I really love that Colts offensive line. So that's really going to be the saving grace when it comes to Taylor for where you want to start him. And there has been some questions in there. I won't say any names, Chad, about should I start Jonathan Taylor this week? Absolutely, you should start him. He's still a low-end RB1, but that Colts offensive line, they got Phillip Rivers back there. They're just going to have to man up. They can open up some holes and running lanes for Taylor. So I still feel very bullish about his outlook this week. So
Moody, I want to know whether there's been something said on this show, takes-wise, that maybe came across as wild to the public or just came across as wild to you that you have vehemently disagreed with throughout this.
That's a good question.
It's probably one of my takes.
It is a great question, and I'll pivot on it a little bit. So I wouldn't say there are any wild takes that the crew has that I disagreed on, but from listening and watching from the summer up until now, I personally have some regrets because it was some players that I was
Okay.
not bullish on that I should have aggressively targeted more in drafts. Now, Dopp, I can just see the smile coming onto your face right now. So Jahmyr Gibbs is one of those guys.
He was good.
So, yeah, I'm like 4 games with at least 36 fantasy points, including one with 55. That's
Yeah.
an easy way to
That
win
seems
your
good.
week. And,
Yes.
and so he was on a lot of playoff teams, in the ESPN league, 62.2% to be exact. I got 2 more for you. I know you mentioned this player quite a bit, Trey McBride. I wasn't in the camp on early tight end. I just waited to like kind of the middle tiers to the back end, but 6 games with at least 20 fantasy points, delivered a week-winning performance in week 15, which I'm very well aware of because Tyler did have McBride
Yep.
in the Focus League. And so, he ended up, McBride was on 63.3% of teams. Last but not least, George Pickens. We know it's CeeDee Lamb's show in Dallas, but Pickens has been phenomenal, and 58.7% of teams who have him make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's been great for people that have had George Pickens. Slow down a little bit recently, but it's still, you would like to believe that there's still more there for him.
I just, Eric, I was giving you the opportunity, served up on a silver platter, to just dunk on any of Mike Clay's takes.
Thank you.
there.
I was just going to say this.
So you had your chance. If you want to take another swing at it, by all means, go for it. We are a big, any anti-Mike Clay propaganda always flies on Fantasy Focus.
I can give you, can I give
all right.
you got one, Eric? Because if you got one.
We always have them
Yeah,
at
go
the
ahead.
ready, but go ahead.
Okay, all right. So I'll bite, Field. I'll bite on this. So one thing about Mike with his his rage and passion about older players.
Yes, Moody.
Running backs, wide receivers. I look at it this way. I'm like, you look at the numbers, they're always outliers. Guys like Devontae Adams and other players who can perform at a high level at an older age. But I think the situation is very important, like when it comes to the context on those players. So I would say, hey, pick and choose like your battles, but just don't take a blanket statement and say all older players are bad. Come on,
Thank
Clay. You
you.
got
I
to
agree.
do better, Clay. You
Yeah,
gotta
the
do better.
ageism is real against the fantasy football players. I'm here to defend some of those folks. Moody, I'm glad you are on the same page.
I will say this: there is one clear statement that Mike makes, and every time that he says it, we always check out. But Eric, anytime Mike Clay talks about maybe you should trust a Packers wide receiver this week, we're like, nope, Mike, don't. Bad call. We're out. We're not doing that. We're done with Packers wide receivers.
That's his kryptonite.
To be clear, Mike's too darn good at his job. To poke
that's why
any
we make
holes
fun of
into
him
his
so much.
logic.
Are you kidding
I know,
me?
that's the problem. However, I will say this on the age thing. So Daniel, when he turned 40 a couple of years back, had a little shindig, a little birthday party, if you will, and he sent out some invites. And Mike saw it, and he was like, his reply on the Evite was like, how old are you turning? And Daniel responded, 40. That's why I'm throwing a party. You don't throw a party for 39-year-old birthdays.
Correct.
Come
No
on
one does
now.
that.
Everybody knows that's common fact. And Mike responded, no word, just a trash emoji.
Yep.
So Mike apparently thinks that turning 40 is like a cardinal letter,
Well, he ought to know now.
scarlet letter.
He ought to know.
He
Yeah.
ought to know.
Wow. Yeah. Jeez.
That's true.
I know.
He's a man. He is 40. Hey, speaking of, Moody, do you think like Phillip Rivers that if you just had like maybe a couple snaps and you could come back and play in week 16 if you were called upon? Offensive line play?
We know a few teams that could use you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know about that. It's funny. Whenever we were all like in the studio, and I remember like standing next to Woody, and I would joke around with my kids, and I'd be like, "Hey, here's your dad like standing next to like an offensive lineman that played like in the league, and like I'm a big guy, but I'm like I feel a little bit tiny like in front of Woody, but." I will tell you this, like my footwork when I played like was not the best. So I will critique myself. My footwork was terrible. So I don't think I would bode well in the modern NFL.
You could have told us your footwork was outstanding. We would have all bought it.
Yes.
You should have just sold us on that.
That's exactly how it goes. Like I played college football and I was terrible. I was mostly on special teams at best. And the one game that I did start, I think I peed my pants before the game actually began. However, when we were watching the Heisman Trophy presentation last weekend, I told my daughters, I was like, yeah, I won this award back in 2009. And
They
then
don't know any better.
soon enough, like in 5 more years, like, yeah, I had to retire from the NFL early, but I was a 7-time Pro Bowler before I did.
Yeah.
Then I met your mom and fell in love. I wanted to go pursue, being a dad. And then 20 years from now, it'll be, I won 3 Super Bowls. Like,
Yep.
the legend has to grow, Eric
That's
Moody.
right.
So take my advice on that one there.
I love that.
You know what I will say? Nobody's avatar suits them better than Eric Moody's. Like, that is a handsome replication.
It is a good-looking
of
avatar.
Eric Moody.
It really
I
is.
am super impressed with that.
We should get back on track with some fantasy questions here, Moody. Is there any guys, or are there any guys, and you kind of hinted at a couple of them. You talked about Ashton Genty being a popular target in chat, Matthew Stafford with a difficult matchup as well. Gut calls here. We're doing gut calls tomorrow on the show. Do you have any gut calls of guys that you think, either for better or worse, will have big or not big weeks in week 16 that you might be either promoting or sitting?
Ooh, I love that question. So I'll
Thank you.
I'll go over a couple of players who I'm very bullish on. And the chat has asked about this player, Jacoby Brissett. Like, the guy has been phenomenal this year. I'm like top 12 fantasy finish in each of his 9 starts, 42.7 pass attempts, and 20.5 fantasy points per game. Now, we know the Cardinals' defense is horrendous, so they're going to be trailing. Bodes well for Brissett. Another player, which Stephania mentioned, which I like quite a bit, is Colby Parkinson. That's
Oh,
another guy
hey
I'm
now. I
very
got the
bullish
Moody
on.
stamp of approval. Love it.
Yeah, I'm sitting there watching. I'm just like, look at this Rams team. I'm like, they're using 13 personnel like
Yes.
at a historic rate. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, a career day, 7 targets, 24.5 fantasy points. Now, I know no Devontae Adams, most likely, but you got the Seahawks defense that are very imposing, but they've allowed the 2nd most receiving yards per game to tight ends. So Parkinson could produce. I'll give you 2 names to close the loop on the question field in regards to players I'm not very bullish on. Kenneth Walker III, Zach Charbonnet, they're like peas in a pod. I'm like, I just don't like the matchup. It's a full-on committee.
I don't like the
They
running
frustrate
backs. Forget the matchup.
Well,
I just don't like the running backs right now. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Eric.
No, you're fine. Yeah, it's both, because it's like they insist on using like both of them. In the chat, we've talked about this. We want to abolish running back by committees in the league. We want to go back to the old days, the good days,
Emmett
where you
Smith,
could count on a
yeah.
guy to get like 25 or 30
That's
touches.
right.
But anyway, I digress. So going back to this backfield real quick. So they're facing the Rams defense, right?
Yep.
That's allowed the 4th fewest fantasy points per game to running backs. I would avoid. I already talked about Justin Jefferson. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But I'm not really thrilled about Jackson Dart. He's still running around out there, not protecting himself. I'm concerned about that. But then you look at this Vikings defense. Like, they just held Dak Prescott to a little bit under 12 fantasy points. Yeah. And on top of that, Minnesota's given up the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. So those are some players I like, and there's some players I do not like for Week 16.
Can I get ahead on 2026 yet? We are looking to serve those that have already been eliminated, like Mike Clay and others, from their fantasy playoffs. Any players that you think ahead to 2026 and you say to yourself, I believe his stock will be very different from where it is right now?
There's not any particular
Like, would Ashton
players.
Genty fit into that category? Like, if they got maybe not the worst offensive line in NFL history, could he be a usable top 10 running back?
He could. Here's one thing, Field, that that kind of comes to my mind with that question, where you look at a player from, like, especially rookies, like a player from one year to the next. I think we don't really evaluate, or I would say value well, the growth a player can have from like one NFL season to the next, like an off season, especially like rookies. I think a great example of that is looking at like Drake May. With the leap that he was able to make. If you got a player that's in a great situation that may have underperformed like the previous year, and if things change, I think those are always players that can kind of really elevate themselves going into the next season. And I'll close the loop on this. You mentioned Genty. It's a great example. The Raiders' offensive line is horrendous, but, if they improve their offensive line, kind of similar to how the Colts did this offseason and other teams, and the Bears is a great example, Genty could deliver on the hype that he had this year. And because of that, I'm like, his ADP could easily drop a little bit. Won't be a first-round ADP. Could be a 2nd or 3rd. He could be a guy that we'll be talking about this time next year, saying he was a great value in drafts, kind of similar to how we talked about, or at least I talked about during the Fantasy Football Marathon, Jonathan Taylor.
Nailed
So
it.
am I front-running saying that Genty could be the next year's Jonathan
Taylor?
Is that what I
There we
just
go.
said, Dom?
You heard it
There we
here
go.
first.
I
would
it's
take
funny.
that.
I just Wow, I just got the Adam Schefter notification. Eric Moody says Ashton Genty could be the
next
2026
JT.
version of 2025 Jonathan Taylor.
Please, Shiva, make that happen. We would all be in on that. Yes, we would. Eric, I just wanted to let you know really quickly before we get out of here. You talked about how you want to go back to no running back by committees. This is a little bit for Stephania as well, but there have been 10 games by running backs this year where you've had at least 30 touches by that running back.
I'm going to go with 8 for Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor has 1. James Cook has 1. Rico Dowdle has 1. Kareem Hunt has 1. Emmanuel Wilson has 1. Christian McCaffrey has 5.
CMC.
That's because he's so big in the passing game.
He is unbelievable. He is like that's crazy. So you want that guy. Listen, just draft Christian McCaffrey if you don't like running back by committees next year. That's really what it comes down to.
It's really hard. It's hard to get through an NFL season. That is, the second part to that question, I think, Moody, is a lot of teams realize that they could not sustain a workload for a running back across the year. They just can't do it. They can't do it with that level of volume. The running backs who do manage that are very heavily involved in the passing game, typically.
Yep.
And we saw Saquon last year with his massive season was a pass catcher and a running back. Also had better blocking up front. But I think coming into next year, what you have to look at, a lot of teams are just unwilling to put that workload on one back. Bijan Robinson might be one of the closest things we see to another running back who's going to take the majority of the carries. But when Atlanta fell off, that dispersion also happened. But if everybody's healthy coming into next year, by the way, their quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., will be coming off surgery. So who is to know how they start the season? But Bijan is one of the few that comes to mind with that kind of workload as well.
Yeah.
People, of course, love rankings, Moody, and it seems like it's only fitting as we are getting close to the bottom of the hour here. I guess the top of the next hour, I should say. Could you just rank your favorite fantasy-focused hosts?
Yes.
People do love rankings. You can just,
it is a ranking
however you want to
thing,
do it, 1 to 3, 3 to 1, 1 to 4, 4 to 1, whatever. You riff. It's okay. None of us will be offended.
I will.
Kidding, Moody, of course.
Stephania already said.
Maybe we don't do that. Never mind.
1, Stephania.
Yes.
2, Daniel Dopp. Everybody else is tied for last.
That's it.
Wow, Fields trying to make it for where I end up getting a lot of text messages post-show.
That's
I'm gonna, look at my phone and be like,
Yes.
That's right. You
Mike
can't
Clay's
win.
going to bring your
That's the thing,
projection
You can't
down.
win.
No.
Don't even.
Eric,
don't even.
you are unbelievable. I just want to say that I know all three of us feel this
You're
way.
number one in our.
You are so awesome being able to help foster our community on a daily basis for our YouTube chat. It means so much to all of us here, and I know it means a lot to the chat as well. We just want to say thank you so much for being a part of Fantasy Focus this year because you've made it unbelievably better than what it was in previous seasons, man. We appreciate you so much, dude.
oh no, appreciate each and every one of you. Yeah, it's always great to interact like with our audience, and I would say it's great just to find different ways to contribute. So hey, it's been great this year. Looking forward to closing out the rest of the year in the chat and interacting, and then we'll try to make things even better going into the next season.
Do it again next year. That's right. That's right, baby. All right, follow him on social media at Eric and Moody, and make sure you hop in the chat and give him a little bit of love. Eric, we love you, buddy. We'll see you next time, all right? And with that, we're actually going to dive into a little bit of questions here really quickly from our YouTube chat. We're going to get a few mailbag questions because we left them hanging because we stole Moody for so long.
Right,
we got to do a few questions just to make sure they get the things that they need. First question here from our YouTube chat comes from Rowan. Want to know what everyone thinks about Rice without Patrick Mahomes.
Great question from Rowan. I can put my
Gardner.
rankings to it. He is right there on the border of being a top 10 wide receiver this week with Gardner Minshew. It is a tasty matchup against the Titans, and I need to sneeze.
God bless you.
That worked.
Oh.
Yeah, there we go. Bless you. There we go. Okay, got it.
There we go.
I would co-sign with everything that Field just says. I don't think that you can't not start Rashee Rice with the way that he's going to be utilized by this offense, even with a lessened quarterback situation. All right, next question here from our YouTube chat. This one comes from Terry McCulley. I need to replace Mahomes, T-Law,
bad.
Bo Nix, or Tyler Shuck.
Now, that will be a great gut call. Tyler Shuck over a Trevor Lawrence or a Bo Nix this week.
Yeah, and Bo Nix against the Jacksonville defense is nothing to sneeze at.
No, it is not. Hey.
One more time.
Hey, now.
Just kidding. I would go with Bo, but it's
Yeah,
close.
that's who I go with. Because just the legs value, it playing at home for him, I think that's the advantage there.
Agreed. I would go with Bo, even though I would love to go with Trevor Lawrence. I just don't want him to play against the Broncos. But yeah, I would go with Bo in that one. All right, more questions here from our YouTube chat. This one comes from, this is going to be tough. How do I say this?
Well, it's actually Mike's burner. So
Yeah. I was
OINENG. This one comes from one of our favorite YouTube chat members, and it says, "Is Derrick Henry too old?" The answer is no.
No.
of course not. No, he's not too
No.
old.
He's the king.
Is he too good?
King Henry.
Dude, he is unbelievable. I think
You know
it's
what?
actually really helped.
Here's what I'd like to say. Anybody who thinks Derrick Henry's too old, get yourself a day pass to training camp. Go hang out. Go challenge
Can I
Derrick
do that?
Henry. I want you to stand next to him. I want you to challenge him in anything. And then you ask yourself the question, is Derrick Henry
Where do
too
I
old?
sign up for day passes where I can go stand
know.
next to Derrick Henry?
To be serious about the question,
Yes.
he is not too old. He is now a top 5 rusher for the NFL season. He is up over 1,000 rushing yards. With Henry, one of the things that has always been the case, and it's a little bit of a different reality this year compared to where things were last year and some of the seasons with Tennessee, is that because he is a virtual zero in the passing game, he has to kind of go nuclear as a rusher and in terms of the touchdowns. Neither one of those has been nuclear this year, so he's been much more. Remember, there was a brutal stretch there for Derrick Henry. He's been much more of like running back 12 than running back 2.
Well, and when the passing game is not elite, it makes it harder because everybody zeroes in on Derrick Henry.
Yes.
And so, that I think that's also been part of the issue with Baltimore this season.
Lamar being limited took away some of the superpowers that Derrick Henry could potentially have, because if you have to count for both Lamar and Derrick Henry, it's a lot harder for defenses.
Right, it changed the whole game
Yeah.
there.
So, but no, he is not too old. He will turn 32 in January, and I think we still love Derrick Henry because the dude is a beast. No one takes care of their body. Few people take care of their
You.
body
For me.
in the in the NFL.
Him, McCaffrey,
That's
like
right.
they're on a different level.
Yes, yes.
One day I want to know who takes care of their body the worst in the NFL.
Who do you think takes care of their body the worst on the show?
We know what happens when you step away for 5 years and then come back.
Yes, we do.
So,
We've seen it.
that might be like
Seen
the
it.
least conditioned coming into an NFL game versus everybody else.
All right, let's do one more question from our YouTube chat. This one comes from the Guitar Maniac. Wants to know, is Dawson Knox a sleeper?
Had a good week last week. I would have a hard time fully trusting him. He is one of 2 tight ends that plays a lot for the Buffalo Bills, but Josh Allen, even against Cleveland, could throw 3 passing touchdowns. He is outside my top 12 of week 16.
I think the reason why we did this is we have this question is because he's had 2 huge games back to back, but one of them you have to remember was against the Cincinnati Bengals. So like I don't want to say it's like
Almost doesn't count.
it's like a free
gimme.
space in Monopoly. Yeah, it's like you land on get out of jail free. Like that's sort of what the Bengals are for the tight end situation. Last week was great, but here's the thing about last week. It was 3 catches for 37 yards and 2 touchdowns. So like, no, I don't think with all the things that you just said, I think he's a fine sleeper, but against Cleveland, I would rather go a different direction at tight end if I could. I think that's going to do it for today's show.
Did you just close your laptop?
I
You're
did.
done.
I did. I was like,
You're
this is
done.
it. We're
Ready.
done with all
Yeah.
these things.
Metaphorically done.
Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Shout out to Eric Moody for coming on the show. So excited to be able to have him here. Today's show was presented by Wingstop. Make sure you love each other. Don't forget to love each other and be kind to yourself, guys. You deserve it. We will be back on a Wednesday to dive into the Week 16 rankings with some gut calls. We'll see you guys then.